Hi, everybody, and welcome to Cyberside Chats. My name is Sherry Davidoff,
And I'm Matt Duran.
and we're excited to be here today to talk about the top cybersecurity priorities for 2025. Now, we're going to discuss today AI, deepfake threats, and third-party risks. And you might notice that this is a little different than the webinars that we've been doing for years and years. For one thing, you see us and not just our slides. Back in October, when we did our AI scams and fraud webinar, I don't know if you remember, we did a deep fake of ourselves. And that was kind of eye opening, wasn't it?
That was a really unique experience. Honestly, I figured we could probably just start doing webinars that way from
I
now
know,
on.
like you don't even need us. So that made us think there's so much AI generated content out there. It would be nice to do something that's going to be different. And so we're hoping that this will be interactive, that you guys will ask questions. We're going to keep it short and sweet, and then we'll stick around for anybody who wants to chat afterwards. We'll be looking at chat. And thanks so much to those of you who took the time to write in ahead of time. Starting in January, we're going to be releasing this as a short weekly podcast, and then we'll still be doing our live webinars once a month. So, with that, why don't we dive in and talk about our top three cybersecurity priorities for 2025? First one, of course, is AI.
I mean, obviously, we have to talk about AI.
We have to talk about
Yeah.
AI. So, I don't know about you, Matt, but when I think about AI, the first, well, what do you think of?
I mean, when I think about AI, oftentimes I'm now thinking anyway about what's going on with like my phone or my BYOD stuff, my mobile
Oh,
devices.
so
AI everywhere. I'm sorry, but this is what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I immediately think of BYOD, and I don't know if most people are, but to me, that really symbolizes how AI is everywhere. And right now, we're going through people's cybersecurity programs, updating them to include AI. You might be doing vetting on a particular piece of AI-related software that you want to use, and yet at the same time, there's this wide open door where people are using their own devices for work, and they might have Gemini, they might have Apple Intelligence. They might be using ChatGPT on their personal systems. You don't know. And so as a result, there's this big wide open hole in your security programs.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you look, you will see a handout. We're about to toss a handout in, and it is called AI Essentials, how we're going to adapt to AI risks in the coming year. So number one on this is to do an AI risk assessment and inventory your AI assets, not just the ones that are really obvious, like we're using Microsoft Copilot, but also where else might AI have sneaked in? Are your vendors using AI? Have they integrated it into their products? Are individuals using
Yeah.
AI on their own devices? I don't know about you. I think those are things we really need to be thinking about.
No, I completely agree with you. Like, just as we were putting this handout together, I was noticing that as we were typing things out, I had a Microsoft Word window open with Copilot running, and I had an Adobe Acrobat window open that had Adobe's AI assistant, and I have Gemini running on my phone, and we have Apple Intelligence going all at
Now
the
we
same
know how to
time. Like,
target you, Matt.
yeah, exactly. Like, no, AI is everywhere, and if we're not careful about it, then we will inevitably run into situations where we're using AI either unintentionally or we're accidentally leaking data because we're not sure what to do with it.
Yeah. So we had a question from Eldon ahead of time, and Eldon says, "Can Microsoft Copilot be trusted and not leak IP back to Microsoft?" Great question, by the
Yeah.
way. Matt?
Yeah, so that's kind of a tough one. We looked into that, and so with Microsoft's Copilot, I mean, there's two general ways that you can use that software. You can have the enterprise license version, which hooks into your SharePoint, which hooks into your Outlook, which looks at all the things that you have access to inside of Microsoft's system, or you can do kind of like the ChatGPT route with it and just use the public one. As far as the public one goes, pretty much anything you dump in there goes straight back to Microsoft and becomes part of their training data. So be really, really careful about that. The same as with ChatGPT or something you'd use with Gemini or something like that.
Well, sometimes Copilot pulls data from places you don't expect. You
Yeah,
think it's looking at public sources, and it's actually looking at files in your tenant, and you might
yeah.
accidentally leak data that way if you're not proofreading things carefully.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of eye-opening when you pop in there. And just remember, I mean, when you get an enterprise version of Copilot, Microsoft states all that stays within your tenant. They say it does not go into their training data, but remember that it has access to everything you have access to. So if you're not using data sensitivity labels, if you're not segmenting your access, then it's going to be able to integrate that into your own tenant. And as Sherry mentioned, I mean, it looks everywhere for information. When we ask it a question, and we've been testing this, I mean, it will look into public news sources if we're talking about things like data breaches,
Or
but
your HR
or
folder,
yeah, or it
unless
will
you
look into
said
like
otherwise.
previous presentations or something like that, which is again just kind of eye opening.
Yeah, it is. I'm just waiting for the oopsies to start happening. It'll
It,
take a
it
while
will.
before you start seeing leaks and breaches and things like that, but it's going to happen. We had another class question from Lee. Are there any big differences in focus areas based on company size or industry? And I loved this
Yeah.
question. We'll actually address this throughout our session today. But when it comes to AI, of course, the answer is yes. And BYOD is a great example where AI and BYOD taken together have some big implications, and that will vary based on industry. Are you in healthcare? Are people dealing with health
Yeah.
information? Hopefully not on people's phones, but anybody who's worked for a hospital knows that health information gets scattered in all kinds of places that you don't want it to. So I would look at your infrastructure, start with that inventory. If you do anything in January, let's get a deadline of the end of January. Make an inventory of all the places where you think AI risks might intersect your organization. And again, think about all those little places where maybe you're not formally adopting it, but it's probably there. Anything else you want to add about AI?
No, I mean, I think it's a great tool. I think it's something that is inevitably going to integrate itself into everything that we do, as far as our work goes. But we just need to be careful. I mean, it's an imperfect technology, so AI can hallucinate. It can flat out lie to you.
Unlike the rest of our perfect technology.
Exactly, like everything else that we have, which is absolutely perfect. But
So
yeah, no, it's good.
we were a little sneaky when we made the description for this because our second priority for 2025 is actually AI related as well, and that is deepfake threats. Because obviously we didn't really have as effective deepfakes until AI started to emerge.
Yeah, completely.
But anyway, Matt, I know you've actually been doing tabletop scenarios about the worst things that can happen with deepfakes, and I thought the one you did recently was fascinating. Do you want to tell everybody about
Oh,
it?
sure. Yeah, that was a really fun exercise to put together. So for those of you who aren't familiar, tabletop is basically us guiding you through a cybersecurity scenario, and we work with your IR team to figure out where there may be gaps in your policy or how your response actually looks. And the one that we put together recently, which was super fun to put together, was a basically just an AI augmented attack against you and your network. And
It was a
yeah,
deepfake extortion.
we started off like somebody takes over something like your social media, and then they create a deep fake of like your CEO as the example. And they either say something really salacious or they say something really offensive, or they say something about the business going under or something like that, something to foment like insecurity about the organization itself. And if you can't get access back to your social media, I mean, and if you can't like get the word out that that's not actually your CEO or something like that, I mean, that can have serious, serious consequences for your business.
Well, and this was inspired by what happened earlier this year with the SEC when they had their Twitter account takeover. I guess
Yeah.
technically their X account takeover. Because, of course,
Let's be honest, we all still
social
call it Twitter.
I know. Social media accounts, of course, are managed in some cases by groups of people. And sometimes corporate Facebook pages are
Mm.
managed by individual Facebook pages. And so it's certainly not out of the question that your social media accounts are high risk. They're at a
Yeah.
high risk for takeover. And now we're combining that with a deep fake threat. Or just imagine somebody makes a fake website that's similar to yours, or a fake YouTube channel that's similar to yours, and starts putting out deep fakes of your staff and your team, or emailing links to people. I mean, there's a real risk that deep fakes could affect your reputation, and I'm not sure that we're really prepared for that.
Oh no, it's a significant problem too. And I mean, deepfakes are so easy to make. We've shown a couple examples in previous webinars, and of course, we use them for tabletop exercises and other demonstrations. But I mean, if you've got a little tiny bit of your video on YouTube, or if there's even just like a picture of you on the internet, I mean, we can take a still frame and make that into a moving video of you talking. And to be perfectly frank,
So
unless you have a
creepy.
giant cheesy smile on your face, like the AI is pretty good about making you look, well, pretty much like you look.
We had a question from David on how do you detect deepfakes? And I actually want to bring it home right now.
Mhm.
How do you know we're not deepfakes? How do they know?
So if it was me looking,
Because I smacked
because
you.
you hit me, that's
Uh,
why.
no, we're interrupting each other. I think that
Yeah,
helps.
I think that helps. Also, I mean, there's ways that you can identify deepfakes right now, anyway. And this won't always be the case because they're going to get better. But right now, the big things you want to look for are like weird mouth movements or strange tones in the voice or like
Yeah.
weird hand gestures and things like that. I mean, there are ways that you can tell when a video is fake. It's not it's not a perfect technology, but I mean, it's getting there. So we're gonna have to watch out for that.
Thanks, Bradley. I'm glad you like the background. It's nice and toasty warm in here. No, just kidding. He wouldn't let me turn the heat on.
No, of course
I'm
not.
freezing. Okay. But yeah, I mean, I think going forward, you're right. It's going to get hard. It's going to get really hard to detect deep fakes. And in a lot of cases, it's going to be the context around it. I'm hoping, for those of you who are really geeky out there, I'm hoping that we can start digitally signing things. And I know there's a big movement to do that, like digitally signing our content and integrating tools that will make that easy. But in the meantime, context is king, right? Where is this information coming from? Checking the URL, making sure it makes sense, doing callbacks to double check. And we didn't even talk about the other way that deepfake is going to affect us, which is scamming,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah.
Like, how do you think deepfakes are going to, how do you think scammers are going to use deepfakes?
Oh, they already are. Like so okay. So there's a couple different ways that we can talk about this. One of them is going to be like scams directed at like the general public. And I mean, if you watch things like Facebook Reels or YouTube Shorts, or if you're on TikTok or anything like that, I mean, they're already there. There is a huge amount of advertising that happens that's all AI generated, and most of it is a scam. And a lot of it comes down to deepfakes. I mean, just recently we saw like what was it, Selena Gomez, we saw Hulk Hogan, we saw a bunch of other people doing like DeWalt drill giveaways and things like that. And it was entirely AI generated. What they were trying to do was get your credit card info. And it was successful. Like a lot of people fell for it. There was a Taylor Swift one that came out too. And yeah, I mean, we're gonna see that as kind of like the new normal when it comes to scam advertising. The other way, though, is going after your business. And when we talk about deepfakes going after your business, I mean, imagine somebody deepfaking like your CFO or someone like that. And then having a video call with someone inside your organization and authorizing like a
I mean,
$250,000 wire transfer or
that
something like that.
engineering company lost $25
Yeah.
million because someone deepfaked their CEO on video and
Mhm.
convinced a finance employee to make multiple wire
Yeah.
transfers. I mean, this is going to start happening, and scams that used to be text are going to have a voice component. At some point, they're also going to have a video component.
No,
So,
they totally will. I mean, like we talked about this in our scams and fraud webinar with Ferrari.
yep, yeah,
Yeah.
check it out, October. And so we need to start doing callbacks. It's not just about detection, it's about like having processes where you expect that it's a fake and you go through and verify that it's legitimate instead of the reverse.
Yeah.
That's going to be really hard for organizations like bank that have to verify customers. You might have customers that call loan officers on their cell phones and are used to getting, just getting a hold of somebody, making that transfer, and now they're going to have to go through some other additional layer of verification.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you should be doing that anyway, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So anyway, again, check out our Adapting to AI Risks Essential Cybersecurity Program Updates handout that is in the Zoom chat. And you will see that we have communications and crisis management as one of the top things you need to think about this year because of the risk of deep fakes.
Mm.
So make sure you have your deep fake response plan. Make sure you're training your employees and that you have a public relations team that is prepared to put out a statement and prepared to handle deep fakes ahead of time. You might also have insurance that covers things like that as well. So check your cyber insurance, see if there's anything related to reputational damage that could potentially help you. A lot of times, having a PR company come in to help preserve your reputation is actually part of your coverage. So think about
Okay,
that.
not a bad idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe we should move on into our last priority for 2025, third party risk.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah.
Matt, I know you have just a whole slew of stories to share with us. Take it
Yeah,
away.
I mean, third party. Okay, so we've been talking about third party risk management, or TPRM, if you want to use the industry
Ooh, I like
acronym for
it.
it. I mean, we've been talking about this for a while, and we really saw this come into play a lot more a few years ago, like when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, and we all went immediately to work from home, and we all made this big rush to cloud services. I mean, a lot of our data went into the cloud. It went into someone else's hands. Should I throw out my there's no cloud, it's just other people's
Go ahead.
computers
Go
line? Okay,
ahead.
there's no cloud, just other people's computers.
Yeah.
But what we saw was this new kind of like this new avenue of risk that we all had to deal with. And when we look at large scale data breaches over the last couple of years, like a lot of them are third parties. They're people that have information just from other sources, like National Public Data, which we've talked about in our last couple of webinars. I mean, they were like a background check organization. They lost 2.7 billion records because they weren't using multi-factor and they had bad password policies. I mean,
And
it's
you
like the
crazy that
simplest thing.
I'm, like, so bored
Yeah.
about that one. I'm like, "How many times will a data broker lose our data?"
Oh yeah, no, I
It's
got my
like,
notification.
"Really?"
Like we all went to the website, we all found ourselves in the database, and like I think we have fatigue at this point. Like,
But the
yeah.
children's health one was especially scary.
Yeah, the children's health one was big. Okay, so if you guys aren't familiar with that one, there was a company called ATSG, and ATSG is like a managed service provider or internet, or I'm sorry, a technology services provider. And for Boston Children's Health, they had, I know,
I used to work there, so it just, like, kills me. It kills me that this happened.
but like they put this company in charge of managing their infrastructure, which a lot of people do. I mean, if you don't have the staff on hand to manage like big server farms or big databases or something like that, you farm that work out to a third party. Pretty normal, right? Well, ATSG got hacked, and the Beyond Leon ransomware group, I hope I'm saying that right, was able to then access not just Boston Children's Health, but a bunch of other people's servers and hijack tons of data. Because of that, notifications had to go out to over 900,000 people that their personal health information, their billing information, their insurance information, all of that just went out the door.
Well, and what kills me about this is it was Boston Children's Health's name in the headline. And that's the problem with third party breaches. Nobody cares about ATSG, but everybody knows, oh, Boston Children's. And so your name is in the headlines. It's your reputational damage, even though it was somebody else's fault, potentially.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I think this was a loss of socials. Is that right?
Oh
Social
yeah,
security
yeah,
numbers. And like, talk about something that I am really bored of. Like, what is the damage at this point if your socials even? I have to ask. Like,
yeah.
raise your hand if your social security number has been stolen. Like, this is exercise, everybody. Yeah.
More than once.
So it stinks that healthcare organizations have
Yeah.
to pay the price for a breach of data that has almost certainly already been breached.
Oh, I know, of course. And I mean, we're already starting to see repercussions from like the sheer level of data theft that's out there. I mean, like myself personally, somebody tried to file an unemployment claim under my name just a couple of months ago, and they would have to have my
Oh
social
yeah, we
security
got
number
a
to do that.
call.
Yeah, I got a
We got
call
a
from
call.
the state unemployment office. And of course, it wasn't me, but I mean, it was nice they had that verification step in place. But I mean, it impacts all of us, but in ways that I think we're just again kind of bored with. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So what do we actually need to do? What do we need to prioritize? First of all, how many of you out there feel like you've got a great, solid third party risk management program in place? Let's raise our hands. Wow, crickets, right?
yeah,
It's not a lot of us. And that's not unusual. So, step one is make sure you have a third party risk management program in place. We actually have put a supply chain risk management handout for you as well in the chat. So, check that out. And if nothing else, again, in Q1, make a list of your top priority vendors, maybe five, maybe 10, ones that you rely on because they're critical for your operations or because they have very sensitive data or because they have a high level of access to your company or your organization. So list them out, go through and do a risk assessment, even if it's not for all of them, even if it's just for a few. And for those of you that may be at that next level of maturity, there are big changes we need to make
yeah.
this year. Again, not to sound like a broken record, but because of AI. I mean, honestly, every year is exciting in cybersecurity. Do you remember when cryptojacking first came out?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That was incredible. And now it's like the most mundane kind of cybercrime
Oh,
on the planet.
cryptojacking. And this is a really genuinely exciting year, though, where we have a lot of changes to make. And I think it's going to be for the best overall. So, when it comes to third party risk management, again, check out also at the bottom of our Adapting to AI Risks handout, you'll see a section about vendor and supply chain management. And I think most people recognize that you need to vet any AI vendor that you're engaging with. So, if you're signing up for Copilot or if you're
Mhm.
signing up for ChatGPT, we should be really evaluating that vendor, understanding what security controls are in place. Um, but where a lot of times we're missing things is that your existing vendors have started to incorporate AI. And so we need to add AI related questions to our vendor vetting questionnaires. Don't just check the same checkboxes as last year. It's time to start
Yeah.
asking your existing vendors, how are you using AI? And sometimes the rug has gotten pulled out from under us, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, there are plenty of instances. I won't name any names, but there are a couple of vendors that I work with who have admitted that they started incorporating AI into just their general business processes, which means any information that I send to them gets integrated into that system. I don't know what the security level is on those systems. I don't know like what that data is actually being used for, and
Yeah.
that's a little upsetting, right?
Imagine if your lawyer is putting your data into ChatGPT,
Oh
which I'm
god,
sure
yeah.
happens all the
Probably.
time. And, is that a personal ChatGPT account? Is that secured with multi-factor authentication? Do we trust the whole organization behind it? Those are things that we want to be aware of. So, things to think about in the coming year. A couple other things to mention. Obviously, you want to evaluate your AI products. And again, look at the security features. Copilot's a great example
Yeah.
where you have to learn to use it. May want to limit what data it can access. ChatGPT, you want to be deploying multi-factor authentication. I'm not sure if there's a retention time you can set with some of these tools, but
Some of them,
I
yeah.
sure would if you can. So you want to really understand, just like any other tool, how you secure the data inside of it.
Mm.
And one issue for legal to address is just having those contractual safeguards that relate to AI. But I think that the risk of fourth and fifth and sixth party breaches is has already gone up substantially.
Oh, yeah, hugely.
Yeah, because so many organizations, again, lawyers are a good example where they're taking your data and throwing it into this service, and now boom, you have a fourth party risk that you didn't have a year ago.
Yeah, I mean the use of public AI. There's horror stories about this already. I mean, first and foremost, I mean it can again, it's imperfect. It can hallucinate. So if you're if you have a lawyer or a doctor who's utilizing AI for either treatment options or for drafting briefs or something like that, I mean they have to be really sure that the information in there is actually accurate first and foremost. But remember that I mean if you've got a public chat GPT instance and somebody breaks into that account, like if your password's bad, you don't have MFA, they can see every single prompt that you put in there and they can see all the information that you gave it. I mean, that is just a huge source of data leakage that a couple of people have already had to come out and declare data breaches because of. There's a reason why like Samsung and Tesla and companies like that don't allow their employees to use ChatGPT. It's that reason specifically.
Yeah, no, we had a question from Brad ahead of time related to the third party risk management topic. Can you share your thoughts on outsourcing some of these efforts? I am obviously a huge fan of outsourcing third party risk management. It's actually something that our team does on behalf of some of our clients. And the reason I think it's effective is because we certainly can scale those efforts. So we develop a checklist, we update the checklist, and we can use it for many different organizations and we can learn from each one. So there's definitely some economies of scale and specialization right now. The other thing is, we are big fans of
Yeah.
VenMinder. And at LMG, we actually offer VenMinder for our clients, those who want it. One of the reasons I really like VenMinder is that your vendors can actually register ahead of time in VenMinder. So if they're serving dozens or hundreds of different organizations and they're getting vetted, you don't have to pepper them with a zillion questionnaires. So it's more efficient in general, but also it's easier for you. You literally log in, they can share their report with you that they've already created according to whatever framework you've asked them for. And then poof, you have it, and you don't have to spend weeks going through this process.
Yeah.
It
That's
really
handy.
saves time and effort. And I think that's what we need this year. We need to really be leveraging technology to help us tackle these issues.
Does Venminder use AI?
Stop, I don't know. We'll have to find out. We'll have to vet our vendor. Ow, you just broke my brain.
Yeah, that happens.
Well, with that, I think maybe it's time for us to wrap up
Yeah.
our very first Cyberside chat. Oh, we have a question for you guys. We have a poll. We are also hoping to launch a Discord or Slack channel so that you guys can talk to us easily in between sessions. Thank you, Brad. And so that we can talk to you as well. So let's get our poll out there to find out which you guys would prefer, Discord or Slack. And then we'll go ahead and set it up. And hopefully in the new year, we'll have it started.
Perfect.
Okay, so let us know if you would prefer Discord or Slack. And we'll stick around a few minutes for those of you that have more questions. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Sherry Davidoff,
And I am Matt Duran.
and we hope to see you again in our next Cyberside Chats.